So Javier Milei has just won Argentina's most important election, and nobody knows what's going to happen next in the country. So I decided to fly all the way from Colombia to Argentina to not only find out the truth about what it's like living through 250% annual inflation, but we wanted to meet Javier. So we booked an Airbnb right next to where Javier Milei was supposed to be staying on the night of his presidential victory. And as you can see from our apartment, we could watch Javier Milei give his winning presidential speech, and down on the ground it was even more crazy. There were Milei fans literally ripping up Argentinian peso bills and throwing it in the air as confetti in celebration, and we're going to show you so much more of the madness we saw on the ground during this presidential election win for Javier Milei. But because we've been in Argentina for over 2 months, we also want to show you guys how many people are actually using Bitcoin in Argentina. Ask the local people what they think about Javier Milei and Sergio Massa, as well as pay a visit to the local central bank and put a little bit of local Bitcoin propaganda on it. Now, the first thing that people ask me about when I say I lived in a country nearly suffering hyperinflation is, how hard is it to get the local currency? Can you get Argentinian pesos with Bitcoin, or do you have to use US dollar stable coins like Tether to get your hands on some local fiat? So this is what we found. I jumped on Google, I went straight to my local cash dealer in Argentina, and I was pleasantly surprised to be able to swap Bitcoin for Argentinian pesos in the country.
3%.
Perfect. So we are getting some pesos here in Argentina. The exchange rate today is 990 pesos per $1 US. By the time you are watching this on YouTube, the exchange rate could be 1200, 1300, 1500. We don't know what it's going to be. 800. See, we don't know. Hopefully 800. The Argentinians say.
So the process was pretty straightforward. It was a simple on-chain Bitcoin transaction. I swapped around $400 worth of Bitcoin, and I got this massive stack of Argentinian pesos. And as you can see, that stack of $400 worth of Argentinian pesos is absolutely massive. It's around 400,000 Argentinian pesos. And to put it into a little bit more context for you guys, I've got a big stack of around $200 worth of pesos with me now. I'm just going to hold it up next to my big head to give you guys a little bit of a comparison of just how big it is. But it's worth noting, we were more lucky than most Argentinians. We were able to actually exchange US dollars at a very favorable rate for the Argentinian peso. So we were able to swap it at around a 1,000 peso rate per $1 US. And most people might hear that and they might start scratching their head and they say, hang on a minute, that doesn't sound very right. My government tells me that for every $1 US, I only get 350 Argentinian pesos, but that's because there are actually two exchange rates in Argentina. There is a government approved exchange rate for the dollar in Argentina, where $1 US is going to only get you 350 Argentinian pesos. But then there's another rate. It's the free market rate in Argentina. It's actually called the blue dollar rate. And in that free market, the same $1 US can actually get you around 1,000 Argentinian pesos. So why is there such this dramatic difference between these two exchange rates? Well, in the early 2000s, the country was dealing with yet another economic crisis, and the government implemented all sorts of regulations and currency controls to try to trap people into using the Argentinian peso. So these restrictions and currency controls put limits on how many US dollars an Argentinian person was actually allowed to hold in a bank and get their hands on. And naturally, when a government tries to restrict something, that simply raises its demand. And this is what birthed the blue dollar free market rate in Argentina. And it's really interesting to see just how wide the differential has grown over the past 20 years. As the devaluation of the Argentinian peso has grown worse, this differential between what the government admits inflation is and what the free market is telling you it is has grown wider and wider. So in the year 2000, you could buy $1 US with one Argentinian peso. Okay, so they're one for one, they were at parity. Each were worth as much as each other. But boy, did things change dramatically in Argentina. In 2010, the Argentinian peso had lost 75% of its value, and all of a sudden, you needed 4 Argentinian pesos to get $1 US. And then only 10 years later, in 2020, you needed a whopping 150 Argentinian pesos to get the same $1. Today in 2023, the exchange rate is around 1,000, meaning you're going to need 1,000 Argentinian pesos to get the same $1. And we did actually do a post on Twitter early in the week. We showed you just how rapidly the money has been devalued in the past 10 years. In 2013, you could get $400 for that one 2,000 Argentinian bill. But today, only 10 years later, you need an exponentially larger stack of fiat currency to get that same $400. And because this devaluation has happened so rapidly, it makes paying for things an absolute nightmare. As you can see, I had to actually fix my phone screen recently. Now, the bill might have only been $70 for my phone repair, but as you can see, I was counting out Argentinian pesos on the counter for at least a minute. It's absolutely crazy trying to pay for things. And if you thought that was crazy, wait till you see what happens later on in the video when I tried to pay for dinner for 6 people with the local currency. It was crazy. We're going to get to that later. But I wanted to first explain why it's so crazy to pay for things in Argentina. So the highest denomination bill in Argentina is a 2,000 Argentinian peso. So if that exchange rate is around 1 for 1,000 Argentinian pesos, this thing right here is only worth around $2. So because this devaluation's happened so rapidly in the past 2 years, the country can't keep up. The country can't make a higher denomination bills. And what's even worse about this situation is the fact when you go get cash from a local cash dealer, these things are in pretty much high demand. And when you get your cash, you're very lucky if you get any of these, meaning the most common bill in Argentina is one of these $1,000 bills, and that is only worth around $1 today. So that does make paying for things absolutely absurd. And you do want to pay with things for cash because typically your exchange rate you're going to get on your bank cards, sometimes you're not going to get the best exchange rate, okay? Because you have to go through the local banking system, which of course operates based upon that government approved exchange rate of 350 pesos to the dollar. Some banks are a little bit more lucky than others, but it does depend upon who you're banking with. So what is the cause of this hyperinflation in Argentina? Well, we can see here that inflation is nothing new to the people of Argentina. They've had their annual inflation rates above 20% in 15 out of the past 21 years. But what we're living through right now is not like any other inflation in Argentina. Early in the week, the government came out and said, look, annual inflation right now is around 143%. And by the end of the year, we, the central bank, are projecting it to hit 180%. And you guys all know the truth about government approved metrics and statistics. You should never trust them, which is why we're going to go to our good friend Steve Hankey's inflation leaderboard here. All jokes aside, Steve Hankey does actually do a pretty good work with the inflation numbers, uncovering the truth behind what inflation actually is in a country. And here on this table, he's actually showing that yes, the government approved inflation figures 138%, but real inflation, according to Steve Hankey, is 239%, which is absolutely crazy. So this would actually mean that inflation is surging at around 20% every single month. And this is exactly what we found on the ground in Argentina. So we've only been here for 2 months, okay? Obviously, full disclosure, we haven't been living here for a year, but we have found that many of the local restaurants we frequently go to constantly raising their prices.
So we're here at a steakhouse in Argentina, and they have these little stickers over the prices. New week, new sticker.
Gracias.
But because Argentina is so used to these kind of problems, it looks as if many of the local businesses actually have solutions to these problems. So we go to this massage place. They're absolutely phenomenal. We get around 2 to 3 a week, Pam and myself. And we went there the first time, and it was really interesting because they actually asked us, how would you like to pay? Can you pay with crypto? We said, of course, we'd like to pay with Bitcoin, not crypto. We did make that distinction, but we were very surprised to be able to actually pay for that massage in in Bitcoin, which is phenomenal. So we had to pay for half of the massage upfront in Bitcoin, which we did at our home. As you can see here, we got to scan a little bit of a lightning invoice. And then when we arrived at the massage place later that day, we paid for the rest of the invoice in Bitcoin. So that was phenomenal and that was really cool. But what's actually interesting and more important to this story is the fact they're always trying to upsell us. So they'll always try to say, hey, would you like to actually buy 6 massages, get 2 for free, and you can lock those in for the next couple of weeks. So what they're doing to us, I think, is they're probably trying to actually anticipate their price rises and get the gringos to pay that higher rate and lock it in for 6 massages, thinking that they're getting a great deal before they actually raise their prices. So the Argentinians are a pretty smart bunch. They know exactly what they're doing because they've lived through this before. So what is actually causing the inflation? Before I show you a video of me going to the local central bank in Argentina, I want to talk a little bit more about what they've been doing, the actions of the central bank, because I think this can really help to explain what is happening in the country of Argentina. So we can see here, surprise, surprise, we've had inflation above 20% for 15 out of the past 21 years. So what a surprise. Money supply is growing by 20%. You get inflation in goods and services by around 20%. Remember, this is exactly what happened all across the Western world between 2020 and 2022. Money supply went up by about 40%. Price of goods and services went up by, on average, around 20%. And if you zoom in more granularly, look at 2023, you can see the money supply has, yes, been growing by around 20% every month. So these are monthly bars here. We're looking at this chart. And of course, what's happening to inflation? It's rising by around 20% every single month in Argentina. So again, ignore what everyone else says, okay? The inflation crisis in Argentina is not happening due to government regulation or policies or missteps by the government. Yes, they could be very small contributing factor, but I think the big picture here is it's pretty simple. You increase the money supply, price of goods and services have to go up. It's really that simple. Many Keynesian economists would actually say that many of Argentina's issues are actually due to political things. They will say, look at how volatile the political scene is in Argentina. And yes, it is true. There was a period in time when Argentina went through 5 different presidents in 1 week. But I don't think that's the root cause of inflation and the economic issues the country is having. If you zoom out a little bit, you can see pretty clearly that Argentina continues to have problems with its debt. They simply spend too much money that the government can't finance. And when they can't pay back that enormous debt they take on, every single time, Argentina just prints the difference. They just print new money. We can see from this chart here that Argentina's actually defaulted on its debt 8 times in the past 100 years. And every single time the country gets into more economic issues, they just go look for more handouts. This is why out of all of the loans the IMF has made all throughout the globe, Argentina actually compromises 60% of the IMF's loan book. That is absolutely absurd. And it just shows to the extent that the country of Argentina is being dragged along by more cheap and easy money to try to solve their issues that the country is having. But it comes down to the simple problem with central banking. The central banks are the problem. So I actually decided to not only visit the central bank in Argentina, but I visited it multiple times because funny enough, I was actually living just around the corner from the central bank and it was on my little daily walk to the gym that I would take every single day. So here's a couple of videos of me spreading some Bitcoin propaganda in front of the Argentinian central bank. And I was actually even going to use this recording that I filmed out the front of it for the beginning of today's video. But as you can hear, the audio is a little bit scratchy, so I didn't end up using that one. So we've just flown from Brazil to Argentina, the country with 250% inflation, and have a look at what I have behind me. That is the root of the problem. It's the central bank. So we are going to go and interview some of the local Argentinians and see what they know about Bitcoin, inflation, and that root of the problem, the central bank. But it's really crazy that more people don't pinpoint the problem in Argentina. On one of my daily walks past the central bank and on my way to the gym, Pam and myself saw this massive protest out the front of this local regional bank that was literally 30 seconds walk away from the central bank, and nobody was protesting out the front of the central bank. They were pointing at the policies made by the local small bank saying, we want higher interest rates on our savings, and all of these small little regulations they were arguing over, but they were missing the root problem. The root problem was literally standing 100 meters up the road that way in front of the central bank. I thought it was absolutely crazy, so I had to film it.
This is what hyperinflation in Argentina looks like. We just picked up 4 kilos of meat from our local grocery store for a grand total of $14 US. Of course, when we went to go and pay with the local currency, the pesos, it was a lot more complicated than just handing over $14 US. We're going to come back to that in a sec. I want to show you some of the bargains we got. So this is 1 kilo of T-bone steak. As you can see there, that's 4,000 pesos. So for anyone who doesn't know, $1 US equals around 1,100 pesos. So that whole pack, about $3.50. Again, you've got half a kilo of beef here, 1,900 pesos. So that's about $1.70. Same thing here, another kilo of T-bone, 1,900 pesos. So again, $1.60. You can see every pack here is around $2 to $3. Even the high quality premium stuff, 4,000 pesos. And now again, let's take a look at the peso situation. So because the peso has devalued so rapidly, their highest denominated bill is only 2,000 pesos. So that's a $2 bill. And they're very hard to get. So you normally get stuck with these ones, the 1,000 peso bills. So we have to hand over 14 of these just for that amount of meat. Ask yourself how crazy that gets when you try to pay for your groceries with cash. It's nearly impossible. And again, this is a reminder. Hyperinflation is dangerous. This is why we Bitcoin.
So as you can see, the price of everything is ridiculously cheap. So for those who have access to Bitcoin or dollars, it's absolutely amazing living in Argentina. Tim Ferriss popularized that term way back in the early 2000s with his book, The 4-Hour Workweek, when he said, earn in dollars, spend in pesos. And it really is true because the countries that use the peso, like Mexico, Argentina, and Colombia, they all have very weak currencies, meaning the price of goods and services is very, very, very cheap there for nomads like myself who earn in Bitcoin, okay? But it is not all rosy in Argentina because obviously the local people earning in Argentinian pesos, the price of goods and services isn't really that cheap for them, okay? The country has been plunged into poverty. We can see that over 40% of the country is actually suffering from poverty. And this is because the Argentinian central bank has just stripped 99% of the country's wealth out of its currency in the past 20 years. That is what a devaluation from 1 peso to $1 US to 1,000 pesos to $1 US does to a country. It's essentially strip mining the wealth straight out of the currency, out of all of the people who actually store that wealth in the currency. And every single local who we did talk to, they were obviously angered. They were enraged by the inflation, the political system. This taxi driver who we briefly spoke to in the taxi, he was actually working 3 different jobs just to try to make ends meet.
No de manera legal.
Ah, it's not legal, but many people use Bitcoin in Australia.
Sí.
Entiendo, sí. Sí, no, acá también muy poca gente está empezando, más que nada la gente joven.
Sí. Young people.
Claro, exacto.
And what does he think about inflation?
¿Y qué piensa de la inflación?
No, bueno, no, que estamos mal. No, está mal, sí. Lamentablemente sí. Pero bueno, ¿qué va a ser? Lo que nos toca, no se puede hacer nada. ¿Qué va a hacer? Pero estamos bien, qué sé yo. O sea, pese a todo, se puede, o sea, trabajando, ¿no?
Sí.
Se puede vivir, qué sé yo estoy bien. Yo estoy bien porque estoy soltero,
Sí.
y no tengo familia. Ya tener familia.
Yeah.
And he was obviously very outraged at the political story happening in the country. Now, this is a really common theme that we do see in all of these Latin American countries that Pam and myself are traveling to. Now, my Spanish is not quite as good as it should be. I have been practicing. I really have. I've been trying to improve my Spanish, but Pam always kind of nudges me on the shoulder from time to time. And she says, hey, look, they're, arguing over politics. Or, hey, look, they're talking about Milei and Massa and the inflation. And apparently in Argentina, a lot more people are talking about these political problems everywhere, like in Starbucks, taxi drivers, cab drivers, everywhere you go, local restaurant, everybody's talking about the political issue. Many people are focusing on the political side of things, and they think that's the reason the economic side is broken. But there is actually a little bit of hope in Argentina. Obviously, we showed you earlier, we were able to pay for a massage in Bitcoin, and lots of the locals are far more awake to Bitcoin. So on our 3rd or 4th day in the country, I believe, we were actually driving past this LED light shop, and we could see that Bitcoin moon man in the window of the store. So we obviously went back the next day, and we actually ended up having like an hour-long conversation with the couple about Bitcoin, inflation, what they think about it. We obviously used all of these pesos to buy this massive big Bitcoin astronaut moon sign. And we obviously asked them, you know, how many of these have you sold? Is it common? Do many people know about Bitcoin in Argentina? And they did tell us that they've sold around 4 or 5 of those Bitcoin lights. So it's obviously not the most popular item they have in the store, but it is a few people actually come in and buying Bitcoin-esque things in the shop. We even gave them a little bit of a tip in Bitcoin, as you can see here. Reciba?
Sí.
Sí.
Acá.
Sí, reciba.
Le da clic.
Apago.
Sí.
Ahí.
There you go. Reciba, envía.
Él va a tocar su scan.
Enviar.
So, 3, 2, 1, enviar. Y entonces... Oh, lento.
Ay,
Hey.
there.
Muy bien. Poco lento. Poco lento. They may not be completely orange-pilled yet, but the Bitcoin awareness in this country is so much higher out of any of the other neighboring Latin American countries that we visited in the last couple of years. And funny enough, there was actually a Bitcoin conference happening in Argentina 1 week before the national election. And as you can see, it's an absolutely massive festival for a small country like Argentina. I was personally surprised at how big it was, okay? Many of the talks were actually in Spanish, so I once again didn't understand everything going on at the conference. But there's some really cool things here. There was obviously this bull that went round and round. It tries to throw you off. Everybody was trying to cling on to the bull for dear life. There was also a few people there that I might have known. I had an impromptu Bitcoin and Monero debate with a popular Monero maximalist called Doug. I might play a little bit of footage from that one. So firstly, what do you think about the cost of living here in Argentina?
Oh, I mean, we're seeing fiat fail in real time here in Argentina, right? The peso is just spiraling out of control. It's insane to actually see it in person and to realize how fiat gone bad can be so detrimental to society.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
How long have you been here for?
I've only been here for a few days. I was here years ago, like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But since being here, I've gotten a good taste of what's going on in terms of the local financial system, for sure.
Yeah. Well, we've been here for
I'm
a couple
walking around with the wad of cash about this big, which
literally
only,
a wad.
which only represents about $100. Right?
Yeah, that's about $30 in there. Look at how fat it is.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But I was pleasantly surprised to see there wasn't many gringos there like Doug and myself. There was actually lots of local Argentinians wanting to learn about Bitcoin and inflation because of the dire circumstances the country has been plunged into over the past 5 years and the past 12 months in particular. So it's really nice to see that there could actually be a little bit of hope for the country of Argentina. So that's a little bit about what Argentina has been suffering through for the past 100 years and a little bit about what I found living in the country. But what comes next in Argentina? Well, the recent election of Javier Milei should make us start asking some really big questions because this is a pro-Bitcoin president. He's obviously talked about abolishing the central bank in the country. He's gone on live TV and hit a piñata that was actually made up in the shape of the central bank all the way back in 2018. So he's a long-time proponent of actually abolishing the central bank and deregulating all the different currencies in Argentina and letting them float against each other. So he actually wants to dollarize the country because that's the currency that most people want to use. He's even talked about abolishing most of the government workers in the country. He said some very, very interesting things. He's even talked about slashing all of the government spending that the country is embarking on, which is leading many people to actually see hope that Javier Milei is the solution for Argentina. But honestly, you shouldn't really be hoping for a political solution to the economic problems you face. We can see pretty clearly by this chart of Bitcoin in Argentinian pesos, the solution for the Argentinians this whole time has been to store their wealth in Bitcoin, not the peso. Bitcoin price in Argentina just crossed over 10 million pesos, and it continues to hit new all-time highs every single year. It's up over 35x since 2020, and this shows you don't need to trust any political leader, even if Javier Milei is probably one of the best spoken politicians I've seen in a long time. He's a self-confessed free market libertarian. He is very promising, and he's said all sorts of very promising things in the past, but I prefer to not trust politicians, especially when they are found on the World Economic Forum's website. That's right, we did do a video looking at why Javier Milei is listed on the World Economic Forum's website and whether we should trust him or not. If you want to learn a little bit more about the background of Javier, I'm going to pop a link to that video up on screen in a moment. You can find it somewhere around there. And if you like this little deep dive into what it's like living on the ground in Argentina, you're probably going to love my 6-month documentary I filmed about my time in the first Bitcoin country, El Salvador. I'm going to pop a link to that video up on screen right there. And if you've made it this far into today's video, I want to give you guys a small little present for sticking around for so long. If you haven't already, you can sign up with SWAN Bitcoin and you can get yourself $10 of free Bitcoin if you use the link in the description of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed that free Bitcoin. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.